This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. I send out lots and lots of applications, but hardly anyone responds. When you do have an interview, you don't get an offer. It feels like you're going nowhere. Does this sound like you? Diane DeVore is here to talk about how to get unstuck in your job search. She's the Assistant Director for Career Services at Everett Community College. Diane has a passion for amplifying silenced voices and communities and encourages others to cultivate imagination, growth, and authentic connection. She joins us from Mount Vernon, Washington. Well, let's get right to it, Diane. Why do people get stuck in a job search? What's going on there?
Yeah, Mac, I think that we often confuse or overlap our identity with employment. And what gets us stuck is rushing applications, maybe feeling discouragement through the whole process, self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And really, the bottom line is when you're disconnected from yourself, that can often show through in your applications.
And what does being stuck look like for the job seeker, for the candidate who's experiencing this?
I think being stuck can look like a generic resume that is being sent to multiple applications and might not be catering towards that specific job. I try to remind people your resume should match that singular job you are applying to. Feeling stuck, or employers can notice when someone is stuck, when they seem unclear or inconsistent. Maybe the resume doesn't match who they're meeting if you make it to that interview. And in that interview, if the applicant, if their strengths don't really align with the tone in that process, can also often feel rigid or have a tone that is unaligned with the person. Really, the build up to an interview, I think, is the art of talking about yourself clearly and concisely. And the better you actually know yourself, maybe what motivates you or what your growth goals are, what you value, the easier and more fluid the resume, cover letter, applicant, and interview process becomes.
Every job search can take time. Sometimes you find a position right away, but sometimes it takes weeks or even months. How can you as a candidate know that you're spinning your wheels and that you are indeed stuck? What signals or signs should you look for, Diane?
When you are applying like with franticness, we'll say, you might not hear back from people, and it's sometimes an individual might ask themselves, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with me? When really it's the approach to the application process. If you I think, and that's kind of what we'll talk about, but that self-reflection piece, if you self-align and you are aware of what am I applying to and my why, then I think that is what can bring you back to, okay, what am I intentionally applying here? Because if not, I think that's where we might feel, especially in this job market, that we are getting ghosted. We are not hearing back from maybe the positions that we are mass applying to. But the best next step is to take a step back and reevaluate your overall approach to the art of applying.
And I want to talk about how to get unstuck. Before we get there, one last question about being stuck. What do employers see when they meet a candidate who is stuck in their job search?
Yeah, I think that they'll encounter a very common copy and paste resume, something that, again, doesn't speak to the not just the job description, but it's really the overall package. Have you done your research? Have you looked to that institution or corporation or wherever you're applying to? Have you really kind of gotten to know, what is it that you are signing up for? Like I started, I think we often overlap our identity with employment, and it's really common because we spend so much time at work. So with that in mind, are we doing the self-work ourselves, not just on ourselves, but to approach that application, that quick apply button, it's not going to get you that meaningful position that you hope to align with.
Well, let's talk about what to do instead. And you mentioned a moment ago the importance of self-reflection, and I know that's one of the first steps you recommend that a candidate take to get unstuck. Why do you recommend self-reflection, Diane?
Yeah, I think it comes back to the why and the build up to a job search or the job search journey. You go through different phases, right? You start with the job search portion, whether you're using job boards, your network, you are going to the website. If you take a step back and kind of slow down and really let the noise settle, I think it helps you identify, why am I here? What kind of next step do I want? What experience do I want in this next version for myself? It's very important there, because the build up to, hopefully, fingers crossed, the interview, that is where you are to speak concisely, professionally about yourself. And if you can do that with ease and fluidity, then that part should be where the employer really gets to see a piece of you professionally, but also maybe personally. What motivates you? And motivation evolves, identity evolves, your desires will evolve. What worked for you maybe 10 years ago, it might not work for you now. And that's where we might feel stuck. That doesn't mean there is no direction. I think it's just you're aware now that you're ready for that next version of yourself. And how do we identify that? By the individual can only do that.
And how do you recommend an individual do that? You mentioned some questions you might ask. What are other steps that you have seen people take to successfully do the self-reflection that's going to help them get unstuck?
Yeah, great question, Mac. And I think that this looks different for everyone. I like to think, let the noise settle, spend time with yourself, whatever that looks like for you in that moment. But truly try to reconnect with yourself and cut out anything that interrupts that. And I don't mean for forever, but just really give yourself time to listen inwards. Are you reaching for that next thing, or is your mind kind of dwelling into that self-doubt? Are you letting the imposter syndrome kind of come in during your time of self-reflection? I think that's the part that we have to self-navigate. So however that looks like for the individual.
Are there exercises you've seen people use to successfully do self-reflection that will give them the answers they need to get unstuck?
Oh, definitely. I think people can turn to books. The Artist's Way is one that is a favorite. Podcasts are a way to kind of get those wheels turning, but also just kind of quieting all the noise and spending time with yourself, whether that's, taking an extra walk during your current work day or whenever your current life looks like, spending time with the people who really remind you what is you that you love to bring out about yourself. So again, it could look different for everyone, but yeah, I think those are some exercises. Journaling is pretty popular, but again, I think it's important to not just do the action for kind of like the image or just to do it, but really kind of deeply dive into it with your soul and your that creativity piece. What does it look like for you? Do you feel like painting today and just letting your mind wander in that sense, or do you want to talk to someone new on your way to work today? So yeah, it could be different things, I think.
Terrific. We're going to take a break, Diane. When we come back, stay with us. Diane DeVore will continue to share her advice on how to get unstuck in your job search. We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Diane DeVore. She's the Assistant Director for Career Services at Everett Community College. Diane has a passion for amplifying silenced voices in communities and encourages others to cultivate imagination, growth, and authentic connection. She joins us from Mount Vernon, Washington. Now, Diane, before the break, we were talking about how to get unstuck in your job search, and we talked about how this happens, what employers see when someone is stuck, and we then started walking through your advice about how to get unstuck. And you talked about the importance of self-reflection and shared some ideas of how to do that. Once you finish your the self-reflection, Diane, how do you identify the actions you're going to take based on that self-reflection?
Yeah, I think it depends on what role you are genuinely curious about when you come out of that self-reflection. Um, Not just what role you think you should want, but what did you find as you kind of explored yourself? Did you identify, are you looking to maybe level up and change positions altogether? Do you want to work for a different employer? And what once you identify some of that, my next step to build what you want your life to look like, then I think that comes with action. Like we can do the journaling and the self-reflection piece, but that next really important piece is who are you going to connect with, or what are you going to personalize to show employers the specific value that you are going to bring to that position that you're interested in applying to.
So know what you want, the job that interests you, where you want to go, um, and begin. How do you, once you have an idea of what those goals are, what's the best way to research what to do next?
Yeah, I think it could be either reconnecting with your community, and that in some worlds is called networking. What to do next? I think that it really depends on those questions that you ask yourself. If you are looking to work for a different employer and change direction, what actionable steps can you take? Do you need to build a certain skill? What does that timeline look like for you? If you're in a position that you are, and I'm using that example, I'm in a current role, I'm looking to kind of pivot into a different direction. Okay, what's my timeline for that? What certifications or what people can I meet, or what kind of skills that I already have can I leverage and should I hone in on? So all this is kind of that action piece to that next step for the individual. Sometimes trying small experiments lead to that clarity. So maybe trying a new workflow, maybe reaching out to someone in the field that you're curious about. All of these are actionable steps that someone can take to align themselves with that one role instead of the sporadic 10 that they might be mass applying to.
Another step I know you recommend that people take, and you touched on this in the first segment, was not to use generic resumes. You're a big fan of customizing resumes for a particular position. How does personalizing a resume for one job help you get unstuck?
Well, it helps you stand out. It in a world of AI and already made resumes, if you can personalize, that bullet, we want to keep again everything as concise and professional as possible. But if you can kind of stand out in that, I did this one thing that brought community together, and I led that. That is maybe something that isn't required as someone's current job description, but maybe someone's passionate about that. Maybe they led a workshop or an event that really just spoke to their passion in their current role. So something like that will make an individual stand out against a generic resume.
A job search can feel overwhelming. I know you encourage people to take a balanced approach, and you believe that can help you get unstuck. Tell us more about this. What do you have in mind? Why does a balanced approach to looking for your next job help you get unstuck?
Yeah, I think that with taking a balanced approach, it's at the core of your application process, because there's a very fine line between obsession and consistency with applications. I've mentioned, mass applying to 50 jobs and not hearing back from any of them. And if we take a different approach to that, so maybe not applying with panic, but settling the noise and applying with intention. Over applying or panic applying sends your nervous system into panic mode and franticness, and maybe being not clear in your interview. And that can show through when you make it to that phase. So what you can do is you can do what you can, apply to those couple or those standout jobs that there's something about them that really speaks to you. You're excited about them in some way or another. Do what you can, pause, go live life, and let go for a little bit, and then return with fresh eyes. I think when you let go a little bit, that's when you start seeing some of the next steps come through, whether it's a callback or, hey, we want to invite you to this first round. That is where you'll start seeing movement, when you can just slowly let go and let the job search be a part of your life, but not your entire identity through the process.
I meet candidates, and I know you have too, who say it's a numbers game. If I send out lots and lots of applications, I'm not panicking. I'm just improving my odds. What do you say to an audience member who is thinking that?
Yeah, and I can see the value in that, but is it done it with intention? If you are one to be sending 50 to 100 applications out a week because you think, five of them will have to reach back out to me. I've said this multiple times, but that generic resume against all the other applicants, it might not take you that far. So we want to balance the odds. If you apply to 10 really intentional resumes and you really put the time into it, maybe it's going to take you a little longer. You might put a little bit more time into that cover letter. You might reach out to someone for a little bit of advice who's in that network already. I think it's the intention behind what we are doing. And that all will tie back to, did you spend time with yourself? Did you take the intentional action? So a lot of this ties back to intention.
Looking for your next job is all about change, and embracing change can be hard. Uh, but I know you also recommend to people, especially those who are stuck, that they embrace change. What do you mean exactly, Diane? And how does embracing change help you get unstuck and find your next job?
I think embracing change is one of the best skills that you can learn. It is not a piece that is easy or automatic to some, but it is a part of every process, and not just the job search, but life. However, tying back to job searching, a new job will often mean new people, new expectations, new tools and technology. The discomfort is going to be normal. It is a part of the process. So I often, when I work with students or community members, I often see that that uh, approach to change could be the step back or the hold back. People aren't afraid sometimes of failing, but they're afraid of what's going to be on that other side, the parts of the unknown. What comes after they say yes to me? How do I resign from my current position that I've been working through to kind of level up or go in this different direction, or to maybe meet new people? So I try to remind people, and this is just like my driving quote through life: everything is impermanent. If you are someone who struggles with change, and change is scary, and it is super normal, maybe try little steps. Maybe try changing your morning routine before your day. Maybe try changing that walk that you're taking to be self-reflective. Maybe try changing the roles you're applying to. And a lot of times I think imposter syndrome can keep us in a certain level. And once you embrace, I am capable of change, and I'm worthy of change, and I want change, it might start changing the questions that you ask and the way that you approach things. So each experiment, each try will take you in a different direction that maybe didn't exist before.
Well, it's been a terrific conversation. Diane, tell us what's next for you.
Yeah, I'm actually in a season of change. My wife and I just moved from Southern to Northern Washington. I've stepped into a new leadership role at Everett Community College, and I'm really reconnecting with my own creative work. But overall, Mac, I'm staying curious and just continuing to build a dream life. So it's been great being here.
Well, I know that our audience can learn more about you by connecting with you on LinkedIn. And when you do reach out to Diane, I hope you'll mention you saw and heard her on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Diane, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about how to get unstuck in your job search?
I think if you're feeling stuck, I hope that you remember you are so much more than a job title. You're ever evolving. You are a being of possibility. And getting unstuck begins the moment you honor who you are and the life that you want to live.
Next week, our guest will be Sarah Stowe. She's the Vice President of People and Culture at True Terpenes. Her company creates high quality, thoroughly tested, and trusted aromatics. You're ready to move on. So what do you want to do next? If you don't know, you're making your next job search harder and longer. Join us next Wednesday when Sarah Stowe and I talk about how to get clear about what you want. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton Huff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry Anderson manages our social media and creates our transcripts. Our sound engineer and editor is Anna McLean, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.